Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining in. Dr. Judy here, Dr. Judy WTF, and tonight we're going to be talking about a subject that comes up every single day of my practice, and it's really about the pain of mother-infant disconnect. So today, I want to delve deeper into a deeper understanding of the pain of mother infant disconnect. And I'm sure that if you're tuning into the show, then you're probably suffering from some level of pain and mother infant disconnect. When I say mother infant, identify it with primary caregiver and infant, usually mother, sometimes father, sometimes grandmother, sometimes adoptive mother. And if you're relating to the show in terms of father-infant disconnect, then you could just make that adjustment in your mind. And this is a call-in show, everybody, and please do call in. I love to hear from you. I'd love to get into the discussion with you after I lay out some foundational principles about the importance of mother-infant connection and why this pain is so unbearable to many, and the level of destruction it causes in the psyche and also in the soma, in the body. So this is a call-in show, everybody, 323-524-2599. And remember that everyone is welcome to a free download of my book, Be the Cause, Healing Human Disconnect. You can also purchase it on Amazon. If you'd like a physical copy of it, you can download a free one by registering for it. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And also remember that you can also avail yourself of a free consultation, a free 15-minute consultation. We have a beautiful staff of people, and I'm happy to match you with who I think you'd be best suited to work with, including me. Of course, I'm on the team. I'm always working to heal human disconnect. So let's lay out some foundational information about mother-infant connection and why that is so vital to human development, why that is so vital to the psyche, why it is so vital for stability and emotional regulation. So if you look at my mind map, which is called officially the Be the Cause Mind Map for Healing Human Disconnect, something that I created as a pathway to healing. And what I found is, since using the mind map, it helps me organize my thoughts. It helps my patients organize their therapy in such a way that they can understand what happened to them in the past, which is demonstrated or illustrated, I should say, by panels 1, 2, 3. The top row represents the past, the wounds of the past, the reactions to those wounds, and the encoding. The second part of the mind map is a description of the here and now. This is the now. So we've got the top past encoding, we've got the middle now, and how we have to decode all of the damages of all of these disconnects. And you see here, this decoding happens either passively or actively, and either we're proactive in decoding or everything will topple on our heads and break us down into chaos, defenses, and then ultimate breakdowns. And ultimate breakdowns vary from the type of breakdown people are experiencing, from psychotic breaks, which many of you have heard of, to actually suiciding or exploding and killing off other human beings. So the final breakdown is where the great destruction occurs. And it's predicated on the fact that when we don't feel properly nourished and attuned to, we don't have the proper mother-infant connection, we just can't weather the storms. We just cannot calm our psyches down enough to function, and then these big breakdowns happen. And you can see in the last row, we've got the paradigm shift, the healing, and the balance. And this is where we are going. So once we understand our wounds, reactions, and encodings, and then dismantle all of that damage, we can then paradigm shift out of this mess and recode ourselves into health, and then live a balanced life and be the cause of a better outcome to part two of our life. So every day I have people walking into this office or reaching me through Zoom with symptom after symptom, defense after defense, symptoms such as extreme anxiety, extreme depression, extreme psychosomatic pain, pain in their stomach, pain in their backs, neck, shoulders, pain that is exhibited through exacerbating their pain from their low level immune system. So this is something that when we are not nourished and attuned to shows up in our bodies. Remember, the mind and the body are interconnected. And one of the ways that you know that you are still suffering from this kind of a deep disconnect is that it shows up in your body. So if you scan your body, check your body, you might find that you're carrying the pain in your heart, you're carrying the pain in your shoulders, you're carrying the pain in your chest. Maybe you can't breathe properly. You're carrying the pain in the form of headaches. This is how pain shows up, because when we cannot regulate, metabolize our pain, then it'll attack the weakest points in our body. So let's go back to John Bowlby, Dr. John Bowlby, Dr. Mary Ainsworth, and their work with attachment theory. And let's see what attachment is supposed to be like and what happens when we are disconnected from. As I say in my book, wherever we're disconnected from, we will suffer. And just an easy example is if our skin is cut and the skin is disconnected, we're going to experience pain. If we're disconnected from our mothers, our fathers, our primary caregivers, we are going to experience pain. When we're infants, we experience this, we don't remember it, it gets registered, and I call that unprocessed pain that's chronically sitting in there, complex PTSD, because it's an unprocessed form. It's not like PTSD where you get in a car accident and you know what happened and then deal with the trauma of that. This is old trauma. So the deep wounding of the mother-infant disconnect, of the primary caregiver and infant disconnect, is this complex trauma that you cannot cure by changing your cognitions or changing your behavior or breathing deeply. I know that there are many methodologies of approaching the complex trauma, and my way is to get down in there, go to the cause, and then in essence, identify the feelings that are stuck in there that cause us pain and suffering, and then help the patient release this so that they are no longer carrying it in their system. So let me just cite some case examples of what happens in these extreme cases. So several people who come in to see me are suffering from either some kind of a physical abuse, some sort of a verbal abuse, a name calling, some sort of a control issue where the parents are trying to control who they are, what they do, who they date, what kind of jobs they have. Some people come in here because they have abuse from sexual traumas, sometimes very severe levels of sexual trauma, and deep, deep betrayal from family members who are acting out sexually on people, brothers acting out on their sisters, vice versa, parents acting out sexually on their children, grandparents, uncles, and so on and so forth. And so you're now getting a kind of an understanding of the different kinds of wounds that I deal with. So there's the physical abuse, there's the verbal abuse, there's the control smothering, there's the sexual abuse, and then there's that abuse of abandonment and neglect. Very, very painful. The last one I want to mention, many of you are familiar with the word narcissistic abuse. And this is where, in my definition of narcissism from a mind map perspective, it is when the parents lack empathy and they put their own needs before the needs of their children. And this creates a very horrible fallout uh, um, uh, based on this mother infant disconnect. The kind of fallout from this narcissistic abuse of lacking empathy takes on many forms, including setting up siblings to rival, setting the system up so that parents use their children and manipulate them to do their bidding, enrolling children in flying monkey campaigns so they could use their child to attack other people that they're not too fond of. It's a really, really ugly game of power and control. So, to have a deep understanding of this, we need to go back to Dr. John Bowlby, Dr. Mary Ainsworth, the attachment theorist, who understand what happens to babies who do not receive this kind of a secure attachment. And some of you may be familiar with reactive attachment disorder, where the baby gets so injured that they cut off emotionally. So basically, they numb out. They do not want to attach to any human figures because human figures don't represent anything very good at all. And so you can see this in children who withdraw and children who will actually turn cruel and head down the road of psychopathy. So these children may act out on other people their deep, deep pain and suffering that they cannot put into words. So they may do very nasty things to their siblings or to animals, or even try to hurt their own parents. And, you know, again, I'm looking at an extreme end here, but you see there's a spectrum here. So when you have, let's say, a certain level of mother-infant disconnect, when mother fails to properly attune to, emotionally mirror, provide all of the mothering, instinctual and intelligent aspects of mothering. If she fails to do that, then the child can then have this disconnect and feel like that attachment is not secure, which will later down the line look like a form of clinginess and anxiety. Again, this is a call-in show, everybody. So please do feel free to call in and ask questions, and let's talk about your experience with mother-infant disconnect. So one of the things that I concentrate on in my mind map therapy is identify these wounds. Why? Because it's important to know that you are not the cause of part one of your life. It's important to know that you did not choose your parents, that this is multi-generational, meaning the dis-ease or the trickle down of psychopathology, as I like to put it, is something that it lives generation to generation. And if we don't get it right, we're just going to keep perpetuating this mother-infant disconnect and the ramifications of this, and pass it down to the next generation who will then repeat it. And that's why I called this show Dr. Judy WTF, What the Freud. And Freud came up with his brilliant theory of the repetition principle. And in the context of the mind map, the deep wounding that happens through this mother infant disconnect unfortunately perpetuates itself in the person's life, very often in the form of repeat pickings of relationships that then recapitulate the injury, and then we have the spin cycle. So then we've got people, grown people, who come in here and say, wow, I picked someone just like my father, just like my mother, and I'm repeating the same pattern, and I don't know what to do about it because I feel so in love with this person, or I feel so addicted to this person. And so let's discuss the ramifications. So what happens is that because we want to heal, we want to repeat the old to get a different result. So instead of picking a healthier partner, when our wounds of mother infant disconnect are unresolved, we keep picking partners that are similar in dynamics to our family dynamics, and we keep looping through. So instead of creating this paradigm shift and synergistic relationship and true partnership and true support and true balance in relationships, we just keep looping through chaos, defenses, and breakdowns. So it becomes the same old broken record. Wounds of childhood leading to reactions, leading to horrible encodings that then get triggered and land us in a bunch of chaos, defenses, and breakdowns. So I'm going to flesh that out a little bit. So what do I mean by reactions? So when we have this experience of mother infant disconnect, we are going to have a reaction to that wound. And when we're infants, we cannot flee, we cannot fight. So what are we going to do? We take the hit, we take the pain, and we are, as I said, hostage to the childhood situation. So if you can't turn to mother for nurturance, you can't turn to your father for nurturance, then what now? Okay, so what now? So mother isn't supplying you with the proper marrying and attunement to help form your healthy psyche. She's not providing you with this healthy attachment so that you get to have this healthy dependence in order to become independent. And if father isn't around or mother doesn't pick very well with uh, picking a partner very well, then your father might not be healthy enough to be that other person that you can resource. So, can you see that this has tremendous, tremendous ramification on every single level? Now, what do people encode into the fiber of their being as a result of this mother infant disconnect or primary caregiver infant disconnect? Well, I've seen it all, and certainly if you read my book, you'll get a taste of what kinds of cognitive encodings are registered here. If you also want to do a kind of a very thorough psychoeducational course on the mind map, you can do that by buying my video series, which is available to you as a Vimeo. It's a download, and thank you, there it is. It comes with uh, the breakdown of all the panels. I lecture through them all, the mind map journal, so that you can journal through your journey and understand in a very structured, laid out fashion. So this is something that you can use as a really great tool to use the mind map. I prefer that people get into therapy and then use the video to supplement the therapy along with the book, because that way you're learning, you're watching, you're reading, and then you're processing. So you know
Dr.
how it
Judy, we
is.
have a call.
Oh, thank you. Okay, just want to say the more modalities you have to learn this information, the better it sticks. And thank you so much.
Hello?
Yeah, hi, welcome.
Hi.
Hi, what's your
Hi,
name?
Dr. Judy.
Hi.
My name's Christine. I'm
Hi.
calling from the eastern coast of Canada,
Oh,
New
how nice
Brunswick.
to hear from you. You know, I am from the eastern coast of Canada. You know that?
Yes, I do. Yeah,
I
I've
figured.
called in once before. It was
Okay, well,
probably about a year ago now.
okay. So, you're not from Montreal, are you?
No, no, New Brunswick.
Oh, so east. I
Right.
like to
Yeah,
visit
right
that
on the coast.
area. Okay. Okay, so Christine,
Yeah.
what is going on in your life related to the mother-infant disconnect?
Well, I'm still trying to deal with, the pain and the anxiety of being raised by a narcissistic mother.
Mm-hmm.
Um, she died about a year ago
Okay,
this month, and
I'm sorry. Okay.
I'm still, coming to terms with the fact that she was a narcissist and how it affects me, how it affects relationships I've been in,
Yes.
um, even anxiety when I'm trying new things, or
Yeah.
uh, it just it just resurfaces all the time.
Yeah. Okay. And
And
you know, it's very sad that even when our narcissistic mothers are no longer in living form, they still live. This is what
yes,
I mean by the psychovirus, because again, your mother is deceased, but yet she still has an impact on your well being. And so
oh,
when I
very very much so.
very much so. This is the challenge, and the mind map is the pathway. The challenge is how do we process the pain that our mothers, fathers, multi generational ancestors left us with when they're no longer, we can't confront them? Well, as you must know, a narcissist is hard to really resolve things with because let me see if you can guess this, Christy. What do they lack?
Empathy.
Exactly. They lack
Hmm.
empathy. And because they lack empathy, they can. Sorry, I have a very loud dog. So,
Oh,
um,
that's okay.
very loud dog. Okay, so empathy is a very, very important human quality that creates this bond, creates mental health, and also creates the possibility of repair. So if you are trying to repair with an apathetic person, a narcissistic mother, father, it's virtually impossible because you're going to be hitting a brick wall. Does that sound familiar?
Oh, absolutely. And Judy, if I may, I'll give you a little bit of background so maybe you can help understand where
Okay,
I'm coming from.
let's do it.
Um,
Let's break it down. Go ahead.
yeah, okay. So I was, my parents they're both deceased now. My parents came from Poland in the
Okay.
70s,
Okay.
and they ended up here. And uh, from my earliest memories, my father died when I was quite young. I was only 6, and he died of cancer.
I'm sorry.
So, and he was I remember him being very loving and nurturing. There's not a lot that I remember about him just because of how young I was, but I remember that, he often showed his love for me. He'd hug me,
Mhm.
and let me sit on his lap and just
Yeah.
love on me like a dad would. And
Mhm.
then when he passed away, when I was 6 years old, um, my mom, I don't know, like, she just, I don't know if she changed or if it just brought out more stress in her or whatnot. But long story short, I have two other brothers.
Mhm.
Uh, we have the same, we share the same dad,
Okay.
and she um, didn't really give them a hard time, but she, from as far back as I can remember, she always, uh, singled me out as the scapegoat. And, and I'm still dealing with the trauma from that. But
So,
basically, my whole life, until she passed, she, it's hard to explain. She just wouldn't, I don't know. She never, I never felt like she really connected with me. She never ever said she was proud of me. I didn't get hugs as a little girl, and no one said, I love you. And um, I have memories of her being quite abusive towards me physically.
this is
Um,
okay.
and then, she brought men around into our lives, which a couple of them abused me sexually. One was a family friend, another was a babysitter, a male babysitter.
I'm just,
And I just never felt protected from her.
I was just curious to know when your father was in the picture, and I know that you were really young. Do you remember her to be more contained and more emotionally available? Did she decompensate when your father passed?
I think it just brought out a whole other side to her.
Mhm.
Because I distinctly remember one of my worst memories of her is she was trying to teach me to make the bed, and of course I was getting the corners, one side too long, one side too short, whatnot, and I remember her screaming at me at the top of her lungs and just ripping the hair right out of my head. She pulled my hair so hard, Judy, that there was a raised lump, and she made my brother's beds until they moved out. But
She,
I was
oh,
expected
so
to
she
be
made your brother's.
independent and,
Mhm. She made your
oh,
brother's
sorry.
bed, but not yours. So you were the
Oh yeah.
scapegoat. You were the target.
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And
And I
so,
remember, sitting around with my brothers, like laughing, joking. She'd single me out and say, what's so effing funny? Wipe that smile off your face. And she said she hated the sound of my laugh. And she told me a lot of things like in my teens that came out, that was very disturbing. Like she said, she hated me because my father would spoil me, and that when she would tell me no, no, no all day, and then he'd come home from work and he'd give in to what I wanted. And she really resented me for that. I mean, years after my dad was gone, she'd bring it up.
let's take a bit of time to mind map this, okay? So that we can
Sure.
understand the deep wounding that you've experienced and are still experiencing. So, you mentioned that you have these two brothers, right? And then you.
Yeah, and then a third one actually, and she parentified me into taking care of him, um, dragging him everywhere with me as a teenager. Um, but I was a teenager. Sorry, he was about 10 years younger than I, but
Okay.
I'd have to drag him everywhere. She put that on me. Like I couldn't go and be social with my friends. It was just school and then come home and then
Oh,
look after my little brother.
okay. So you've had physical
Um,
abuse, you've had verbal abuse, you've had sexual abuse, you've had this parentified child type of abuse where your mother enlisted you to be the parent of your brother. So,
mhm.
right, you've had just about
There's
every
yeah, there's a lot going on there.
a lot going on here. So why is it still sitting in your head? First of all, I'd like to ask you: Are you married? Are you in a relationship?
I'm I'm actually divorced,
Okay.
um, and I'm single at the moment. Like I got out of a narcissistic, abusive relationship a couple years ago, and it's just sent me sideways. And then I needed to find out what was going on. I needed to learn everything narcissistic, and then it all made sense.
Right.
Once I realized, oh my gosh, my mom is a narcissist. She was a narcissist.
So,
And
so
it just totally blew open. Sorry.
No, I just wanted to make the point that not only were you in it, then you chose to invite it back into your life. And then instead of the relationship giving you comfort and security, it just once again, you spun through the WTF cycle with this other person. And, people ask me, what am I, stupid? Why do I do this? And that's not it. You're not stupid. Your unconscious mind is genuinely trying to heal old pain. So you go back into this unhealthy cycle, unconsciously wishing that it's going to now have a happy ending. And it doesn't, because you're picking from the same pool in terms of the mental health pool, same pool of narcissistically compromised people who lack empathy and have not done the work and have not grown enough to be good partners. And so therefore, you hook up with somebody like that, and then you go down the tubes again. Chaos, defenses, and breakdowns. So why are you in this?
Oh, yeah, I imploded. I swallowed a bunch of pills.
Okay, so
I could have, I almost died. I mean, he just had me that low. That was my rock bottom. I didn't even care if I lived or died at that point. I was just so broken.
Okay, so your implosion was the pills, the low point where you just didn't even want to be here. And so
no,
in the context of what we're talking about, it makes sense that you didn't want to be here because you tried again for human connection, and it didn't work out. And so the hope went down the tubes also. It's one, it's enough of a huge deal that your mother disconnected from you. It's enough of a huge deal that your father passed away, and he was the only one who showed you this level of unconditional love. And then it's enough of a huge deal that your mother created this kind of scapegoating and treated your brothers like they were Prince Charming. And so look what your whole background was. And then you thought, well, maybe there's somebody out there that could truly treat me with kindness and regard.
Oh, the whole love bombing thing, I fell for it hook, line, and sinker.
Right.
Just craving that connection with somebody. 100. And man, they're good at disguising what they're really about.
Right, and that's why I recommend to people that they don't bond with somebody. People date backwards. I'm just not a fan of dating backwards, meaning first they have sex, right? And then they get all glued together, and then they discover that it feels so good, and then they're love bombed, and then if the relationship in the core of the person is not okay, then the person or the persons get hooked to each other, and then one of them starts to back away. And when that back away happens, it triggers this disconnect, and then the person is left reeling, and then the person might even step in again many more times to give them a few little crumbs and a little bit of love bombing, right? To get you just get you back in the game.
I've been through it.
Okay, so now you're back in the game.
Textbook case here.
It's textbook. I mean, listen, I've been watching this carefully for so many years and mind mapping this, and that's why the mind map, it actually has predictive value, and it is a pathway out of this mess. And how do you process the mess is you got to go back into these deep injurious feelings and deal with the abandonment, the betrayal, deal with the rage, deal with the sadness, deal with the grief. I mean, these are just not very pretty feelings. So I understand that people would rather skip it all in therapy and just go right for cognitive behavioral. Let's just fix the thoughts, or behavior modify, or get some medication to numb the pain, or put some other drug and substance abuse in there to numb the pain. But, it is very hard to face your feelings and delve deep into the hole in the soul. It's not a pretty place to be. It's just the only pathway that I know of. I know that there are different ways of cleaning the brain and EMDR to balance emotions. It's not what I do. I respect that it's helpful. People spend many years studying this thing, but my pathway is in. My pathway is to face the pain, resurrect the pain one more time. I know that sounds horrible, doesn't it? But that's what we do at the Psychological Healing Center. We open the wound back for the last time. Okay, this does not take years of analysis. And Christine, in your case, you're an imploder. So you've got to let the pain unload. So instead of imploding, which is what you've been doing, or exploding, which is projecting all your feelings on other people, and the extreme end of explode, right, is homicide, offing other humans, and the extreme form of implode is suicide. We don't want to be doing either one of those. So what we need to do, the other pathway, curtain number 3, is go deep down into the pain, face the pain with a professional so that you could feel contained and that you don't have to feel crazy. You understand that you've been made crazy, okay? Made crazy, not crazy. And then when you process this pain, what I found, and I've had some beautiful sessions lately of people who say things like, wow, I could breathe now. And I see physical changes in people, like the blood returns to their cheeks. It's a beautiful thing. People who've been sitting in my office deep in pain, vampired, like what you're describing to me, Christine, vampired by your mother. And by the way, I just want to address another point that you mentioned, that your mother hates the sound of your laugh. And, clearly you were a huge trigger for your mother. And unfortunately, she didn't do her work. And so she projected all her negative feelings onto you. Make sense? And that's why you soaked all of this up, because you believed that there was something wrong with you. That's what children do. They don't see the perspective of the sickness of the system. They figure there's something wrong with them, and if they behave and if they take on the responsibility of all the problems in the family and fix it and be a good girl or boy, then everything will be okay. Well, it just doesn't work out that way, does it?
There's a lot of shame around it too. Like, when you get a little older, you start to see what other families do and what your peers do, and it just was a different picture. And I thought, wow, why do I have a mom that's so cruel? And there's actually moms out there that love their kids. Wow, what a concept!
What a concept, right? And you think that would be good.
It's so triggering, even on Mother's Day. Like, I'm a mom, so I have an awesome 15-year-old son. He's just my world. But sorry, I just lost my train of thought.
No, I mean, look, you're a mom, and so it sounds to me like you have a different parenting view, or that you did a better job connecting to your child because you said he's awesome and you do have the capacity for empathy. So now you need empathy. You've been giving it and giving it, and it's been drained out of your being, and now it's your turn. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
It's your turn to have somebody stand beside you. It's your turn to have an enlightened witness to walk you through this. It's your turn to take and not to give. Very important, because you've been a giver, which is why
Mm-hmm.
you're imploding. Okay, you are bleeding out
Mm-hmm.
emotionally. Understood?
Yes. No, that makes
So,
a lot of sense.
so right, you've been bleeding out. So I'm hoping by breaking this all down for you and breaking down the mind map that you now have a deeper understanding of why you're in pain. You're in pain because you have not processed your emotions. You've been stuffing them down. You've probably been people pleasing, whatever other defense
oh,
you've been.
100%.
Oh, I could
Yeah.
tell. I could tell because people who implode are usually the people pleasers. The people who explode, that's their pathway to release. And again, none of those
Mm-hmm.
methods work. Okay, so
Right.
I really invite you to call me, and if you're ready for this work, then I'll absolutely match you with someone who can help you. The one that I have in mind would probably be Christiana Davidson, because she's really talented
Mm-hmm.
at working with mothers who are narcissistic mothers and their daughters, and helping heal this. So I
Mm-hmm.
think she'd be a great person for you to work with. And
Yeah.
yeah, so just be in
Yeah.
touch with me, and then I'll put you in touch with Christiana. She's in London, England, by the way, and she's just
Okay.
wonderful.
Okay.
We've done videos before, and
Yeah,
she's
I've seen her before, and yeah, she is really good.
yeah, she really, and she's compassionate. And I'll say it
Yeah.
a million
Yeah.
times. I don't care how smart a therapist is if they lack um, empathy, if they're just all brains and no heart, if they're in it because of
Mm-hmm.
other reasons other than just because they really want to make a difference. So that's got to be a really huge reason to be a therapist, or else just go do something else.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If you don't have
Exactly.
empathy, it's just, I don't know. It's recapitulating that mother infant disconnect, because again, brains isn't enough. Knowledge
Mm-hmm.
doesn't get you far enough. You have to have the human connection, because that's the missing thing in the relationship. So I hope I did
Mm-hmm.
a decent job in breaking this down for you, and helping you to understand why you are still in pain. Any other
Mm-hmm.
questions?
No, you did a fantastic job. I've been following you for over a year now, and I've really enjoyed the topics, especially related to the narcissistic part. But
Yeah.
yes, I'll definitely take you up on that, and get in touch with you about getting maybe some sessions with Christiana.
Okay.
I
Okay.
think that sounds
Yeah,
good.
and I'll make sure
I
you
thought I was I thought I was handling it and on my own, like, just going by your tips and stuff. But I think that actually speaking with a therapist is really the only way for me to finally let this go. Because right now I feel like there's an elephant on my chest.
I know. So, yeah, give an opportunity to get that elephant off your chest so that you can breathe again. Okay, you don't deserve to
Mm-hmm.
live like this, and you certainly don't deserve to keep running through this, what the Freud programming that you've been on. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
thank you so much for calling in. I
Mm-hmm.
really appreciate it, and be in touch. Okay,
Okay, that's okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Judy.
my pleasure.
Okay, have a good night.
Okay.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, so we do have time for one more call. So if there's anybody else that wants to call in, please do. And it's just unbelievable how deep this goes. And it's unbelievable the level of pain and suffering this mother disconnect creates, especially when you don't have a father around to mitigate the damages. At least Christine had a father for a little while, and she got that impression of unconditional love, and that impression of being cherished, and that makes a world of difference. When you have one person that you can turn to, because if you can't turn to your mother, you can't turn to your father, and you as an infant child are undeveloped, you can't turn to yourself because there's not enough sense of self to turn to. And so what happens is this extreme emotional dysregulation, and then the amygdala starts firing off, and then you can't fight, you can't flee, so you go into your deep dark hole, and then the damages are just, I could go on and on. Feelings of emptiness, feelings of hopelessness, anxiety, depression. And then what do we do when we're not feeling well? Well, you know what we do, what we can do. We defend ourselves, and drugs, sex, rock and roll. Those are the best defenses. It's just that they don't hold up over time, and they deteriorate, and then ultimately we break down. So I want to bring up another concept called healthy narcissism. What is healthy narcissism? Is when the person is a well enough developed individual, has high self esteem, has functional defenses, and has the ability to have empathy and connect and be the light to him or herself and other people. And healthy narcissism only can happen when you have healthy dependence, because if you don't have that healthy mother infant connection, and you don't have the foundationals of this attachment kind of upbringing, then either you're going to go cold and distant and have avoidant attachment, which many people do. If you have controlling parents, you're probably going to feel smothered in a relationship. If you've got parents that didn't give you the attachment style of security, you might have clingy style of relationship, and the outcomes are just very painful for everyone, because then you get into dances of dysfunction where Mr. Avoidant meets Miss Clingy, and then Mr. Avoidant gets freaked out when Miss Clingy clings, and Miss Clingy freaks out when Mr. Avoidant avoids. And so it's important to work all these things out in therapy and not in the relationship, because then it's just too unconscious, it's too complicated, and you just would rather have this mess handled before you get in one. And so that's why it's so important to have a process of healing, hopefully before you go out and you pick a relationship. And if you're in one, I really highly recommend that both parties be in healing at the same time, because what oftentimes happens is that one partner outgrows the other, and that's not the intention of the mind map. Is not the intention to create divorces and breakup. It's the intention to put people on the same team, connect them, help them to understand empathically the pain and suffering that each one has gone through, so that they could be more empathic toward themselves and towards others. So if there are no other call-ins, I just want to speak a little bit more about the Psychological Healing Center. We are there any other callers? Any questions?
No other callers. Let me look and see if there's any chat room
Okay,
questions.
I'll be happy to handle that. Sure.
Mostly just people commenting on what you guys were talking about. So
Okay.
no really questions though.
Okay, so I just want to talk a little bit more about the Psychological Healing Center. It's physically located in Sherman Oaks, and of course we do a lot of Zoom calls. We have a beautiful staff of people who know mind map therapy and are trained personally by me in this system of healing. And of course you can avail yourself of the free PDF copy of the book. Please subscribe to my channel so that you can get notification every week. This next week is Thanksgiving, so I will not be going live. So don't call in because I just will be not there. And I'm going to do my rerun about stuffing your feelings and families. So please tune in and watch the rerun. And everyone is more than welcome to give a call, request a free consultation, and share with me or a staff member what your needs are, what issues are hurting and challenging you, who you would like to work with on the team. If you need to work with somebody particularly at a certain budget, mention that, and we're going to try our very best to accommodate you and teach you a system of healing where you will learn how to think like a shrink. So our philosophy is that we want you to be independent of therapy, not to be dependent on therapy. Because again, if you're in therapy for months and years, unless you just need that support, and some people are in therapy for months and years with me, and I really appreciate and support that if that's what they need. It's just that if you're not learning something significant in 10 sessions, you should start to wonder why you're not learning something in the course of your therapy. So the mind map therapy is a psychoeducational system. So I invite you to partake and learn and heal. And remember that not only are you doing this for yourself, you're also hopefully invested in our next generation. And the more you heal, the more you pass down your psychological health to your children, grandchildren, etc. And that's the only way I can think of to create a next generation that has healthy psyche, healthy attachment, healthy patterns, healthy relationships, and therefore healthy mind, body, soul to go with it. So thank you so much for tuning in. Really appreciate the call in and the comments, and please do reach out. See you next time. Good night, everybody. And if you've enjoyed my show, please subscribe to my channel. If you need help, please call the number below. And if you've enjoyed my